Join me, Jonesy, for interviews, recaps and much more. So tune in, unwind and get your sporting fix. Well, Tess, thank you so much for jumping on firstly. I'll give you a bit of an introduction for those who don't know you, but I don't think, everyone really... There's a lot of people that should know you are an AFLW player and you've just won the Premiership in 2024. How's the last few weeks been since the grand final?
It's been hectic to say the least, obviously. They don't warn you about all the celebrations after you win a flag. But, it has obviously been very hectic. But, just letting it all sink in, I guess it's still, I still can't quite believe, what we've accomplished. And bit of a come down, obviously, as we go into the new year and we don't want a Premiership hangover by any sorts. But, it's been very hectic, but it's been great just hanging out with everyone who, we've worked so hard for this. So it's really good to relish in the celebrations,
That's so good. What can you explain did you get up to after the celebrations, obviously?
Silliness. That should say just about enough.
That's good. Well, you played a huge role in that game. You kicked a goal. Mm-hmm. And I would say you're one of the most underrated players in the competition. I don't know, you seem very humble, so you probably would go against that. But I say that, and I've had a few mates saying, I got Tess Craven on, what do you want to ask her or whatever, and they were talking about you in the grand final because you're a local kid and everyone knows you. They were saying the same thing about how underrated you are and how you actually took last season to this season a whole new level. Like I was looking at your stats yesterday and it was just improvement. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, touching the ball a lot more. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, and does that make you feel like? Not that you were in a struggling position beforehand, but does it feel like you've looking really good into the future in terms of your placement in the squad too?
Well, you say not struggling, but I wouldn't say I was thriving. I was probably just, every game was just more of a, I don't want to get dropped or I don't want to play bad than I want to play well. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like the pressure of actually performing was, probably overriding my joy of playing at times. And so now this year that was a big focus. Obviously, I wanted to just come in, have a really good preseason. Yeah. And just, really, because I felt like I wasn't anywhere near what I could really do yet. So I think I was closer this year for sure. And I think my enjoyment of footy just came as part of that as well. So, it definitely felt like a really big positive change. Yeah.
And I feel like in a Premiership team where, obviously they're North Melbourne, the quality team, they've just won the Premiership. But, in terms of quality players, you obviously your selection is, I don't know what that is, sorry. You from last year to this year, again, you just keep going from leaps to bounds. I feel like you can't see progression in a lot of players in a quality team because obviously there's a lot of, Jasmine Garners or Ash Riddell or whatever. There's a lot of people overpowering that. But I feel like in this year for you, people could see that, which is incredible. I want to go back to locally and back before, when you were a little kid, you were playing for Jonesy and you played cricket for Jonesy. Can you just talk about your experience as a kid playing footy?
Oh, gee, I guess it's probably similar to you, I suppose. It was just something all my mates did, and I guess my dad played footy for Jonesy as well, and I guess I kind of followed in his footsteps. I'm not sure if he really expected me to, but it just so happened to be that way, and I don't know, it was just something I fell in love with from a really early age, and I didn't see me being a girl as a problem. Why wouldn't I play footy? And I was really lucky that the people I was surrounded with didn't see it as a boundary for me either. And so I just went through the ranks, and luckily enough, I'm at a time in history where there are pathways for girls to play, and it just came about at the right time for me. So I got to play all the way through. A massive Jonesy girl, obviously. That's my roots always, brown and gold. But and obviously played a bit of cricket in the summer, but that's more just got into that as well because friends were playing it and. Yeah. I
actually remember when you got drafted, pick 13, 2021. I remember you got drafted, and I remember, I don't know if it might have been the day after or a couple of days after, I was with a mate at the Jonesy Footy Oval, and I saw you must have been walking a dog or something anyway, but I yelled out, and you must have got this all the time, but I yelled out, "Go Tess," because you played for North, and I'm a North supporter. How much support did you get after being selected? If you can talk us through that journey of being selected and the hype around it, it must be pretty big.
It's a while ago now, but it was pretty surreal. I think my phone almost blew up just because so obviously the Dryso community, they supported me from such a young age, and I guess to be at that sort of, that was like my childhood dream, and to actually finally get there. And it was honestly, like I'd say it's very similar to winning the Premiership. It's very surreal for quite some time. You just have to, and then you got to learn how to, behave in the professional environment. So you go in and it's not an AFL club, it's your workplace. And obviously like little stuff like that in the local community was great, obviously. And really got behind me. But honestly, it was just super surreal. It was very hard to believe. But you just got to try and soak it all in the moment and really enjoy it, I suppose. Because before you know it, it's 3 years later, and you're in the squad for a couple of years, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not the young kid anymore, but it was, just like probably one of the best days of my life for sure.
Well, if we can take you back to that pick 13, that's, if you could tell any club, if they'd obviously take a pick 13, it's an elite number. Were you always thinking you were going to get drafted in 2021? Like, where was your mindset at before getting drafted? Did you think you were going to get picked?
I probably wouldn't say I actually thought I was at that point until early 2021. The year before was COVID, obviously, and we'd played it was NAB League at that time, so Coast Talent League, but NAB League at the time. And before the season got cancelled, I wasn't playing very good footy. Like, I was in the team, like the Falcons team, the rep team, but I wasn't playing very well. And I probably wasn't at the stage to get drafted. And I think COVID probably for me put that into perspective, that like I kind of had a real hard look at myself and kind of realized I wasn't where I needed to be if I wanted to be drafted. And so, I kind of used the pandemic as a time to just put in a lot of work. And so that's what I did every night. I mean, half the population just went down to the footy oval because there was nothing better to do. But me and Dad went down to footy oval every night and just worked on my fitness and all the skills and everything. And I think I kind of had that mindset of like, you got to keep working. And then COVID sort of finished. It was, the end of 2020 when COVID chilled for a bit before it ramped up again in 2021. And we got a season in 2021 and started playing. I was playing pretty well. And, clubs start talking to you and stuff, and you kind of comes to some sort of realization that you're at least in the mix. But obviously until your name's called, you're never 100% sure. And you never want to get too ahead of yourself. So until if I genuinely believed I had a shot, I'd probably say like about mid 2021 I would say.
Well, that's a pretty good explanation. I want to know like the levels that come with footy. I know so it goes club, and then does it go to the Falcons? And so what's the NAB League exactly?
So NAB League is like, it's called the Coach Talent League. It used to be called the TAC Cup. It's like this. It's like the best under 18 Vic competition. So you have your regions. So like we're Geelong Falcons, and then there's Bendigo Pioneers, Harley Reid's from there, or there's Northern Knights, which is like Marcus Bonfelli's from there. So it's just like regions of Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the like wider country regions. So, so like Northern Knights is Northern Melbourne and Northern Suburbs, and then there's like, what are the other ones?
Sandringham Dragons?
That's out St Kilda way,
there's a few,
Southeast way. Then there's Oakley, which is more, so they're just to count for all the regions. And your local club falls into a region that you can then try out for, and then obviously you're in the team for the region, and you all play against each other to determine the best region, I suppose.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was chatting to a few of my mates before this again. There's been a lot of talk about you recently. Obviously you're a gun at footy, but you were a gun at cricket too in Drisey. Just talk about your cricketing career, and I'll talk about why you chose footy later. But you were a gun cricketer in Drisey.
I think I wanted to get good at cricket out of spite, because I decided I wanted to play it a bit later than I think than footy for me at least, but like then a lot of the people who started playing cricket, I really started when I was about 12. And I was really bad. I just was really, really sucked at it, but I really wanted to be good at it. So me and my dad spent hours in the nets. Love my dad. He's done a lot for me, as you can probably tell. But we just spent hours and hours in the nets there, and slowly got all right at it. I guess I don't know. I really fell in love with it late, I'd say. Like, I love cricket. I would still play cricket now if I could. Obviously, it just doesn't work with the seasons. But, I loved it. Don't mind batting. Don't mind bowling. Don't mind wicket-keeping. Don't mind doing anything, as long as it's not standing in the field for too long. But, I always loved cricket. It's just unfortunate where we're at, where I just can't play anymore. But loved it until I was drafted, for sure. Yeah.
So, it was always footy before cricket?
100%.
Yeah. All right. So, I want to talk about, like, what actually inspired you to be a footballer. You were talking about how, you had a hunger and you always wanted to play it, but was there any inspirational role models that actually got you to that point?
That's a hard question because as a girl, I don't think there was really anyone I could look at and see myself. I think I sort of mentioned this before, but because I guess I grew up around people like my mum and dad, never saw that me being a girl would stop me. They just encouraged me and facilitated it. And I know I'm very lucky. There's a lot of girls who obviously were discouraged to play football when they were younger, and I just never had that experience. And I think, as I said, as I was coming through, you started to see more and more people, and there were like AFLW exhibition games as I was growing up, and as I started to see people who looked like me or who were, at the professional level, I think it probably just fueled my hunger a bit more because there actually was somewhere to go with it, and I could pursue a career if I really wanted to. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I was just kind of not in denial, but I just I love telling this story, but Mum said to me once, I don't know if she made it up for the plot or whatever, but she said that she was afraid of telling me one day that there was no AFLW for me to play in when I was a kid, because I just played with the boys when I was growing up, and you're a kid, you don't see there will be no different when I'm older. So I always just had that point of view, and I'm just lucky that the AFLW so happened to come about at the right time for me. Yeah. Well,
I feel like I was just reflecting as you were saying that for you and for current AFLW players, I guess there was never a role model in that exact sport for women. But then now if you look at it, I guess you're the role models for others. Like, it must be so satisfying, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. Or, it's interesting how much it's evolved and how, for all the current players, they've never had a role model in that exact area of sport, whereas I feel like, but it's getting a lot easier to get into it, isn't it? Like, there's a lot more.
Well, I suppose it's quite a privilege now that we're in this position, because I know what it was like to not have anyone to look up to. Exactly. And I remember when I was a kid, and the first couple I saw, I really latched onto because I could not believe it. Like, I think my first ever women's footy game I watched was my mum's cousin was playing in a women's team in Melbourne somewhere, and I'd never seen a women's team play football before, and it blew my mind, because it was like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Yeah. And so, like you said, we're very lucky now to be in the position where people can look up to us. But obviously, I really feel for the girls who are at the, who are a bit older now, and they're going to have to retire just as the AFLW is getting, some fuel behind it. And I'm really thankful for those girls, because obviously we wouldn't have a space to be where we are now if it weren't for them. And they're not going to get the recognition they probably deserve. They're not going to get the time in the competition that they probably deserve. But I'm very, very thankful and grateful for them, because it meant a lot to little girls like me. And now it can continue to generations, hopefully. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember the time when the AFLW was established at all?
Yeah, it would have been 2017. I was in year 8. I went to the second game.
So before that, am I right in saying like you thought AFL in like women's wouldn't have been a thing? Or
well, it was going to come about. Like, the VFL was basically the AFLW at that point. So there was the VFLW, which was like all the AFL players played in that. So that was like a very good competition at the time. Yeah. I mean, probably very similar to the men's sort of progress, and then it was the VFL, and then it became more professional with the AFL. But there was always those exhibition games between the Ds and the Bulldogs, which would come across a couple of times a year, and local teams started playing as well. Probably before the AFLW even came around, though. So I mean, before that it was sparse, but it was slowly just gradually building up, I guess. Yeah.
And I feel like it's going from strength to strength each year. Like, if we look at the changes and developments, like literally the grand final sold out. Like, I've got teachers at school saying, because they go for North and they go for Brisbane, and they're going to the grand final and stuff, and I'm like, because like I'd love to go to a grand final, obviously, but I feel like there's so much more attention and, I guess, excitement around it. I was looking after the grand final, obviously it said Icon Park, but there were talks about it from Sarah Burt. I don't know if you heard, but she was saying it would be good to have it at Marvel Stadium for obviously bigger, better crowds, and she gave 3 reasons, with it being more of a bigger festival of footy and not weather dependent, and it'll draw bigger crowds. Are you absolutely for that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, I completely understand the appeal of having it at Icon. Like, it is a great ground to play on. It's become kind of the home of the AFLW, I suppose. Like, and it obviously, like, it was an absolute spectacle, the grand final. Like, it was so loud. There was not an empty seat. Like, it was such a cool thing to be a part of. But I think we can't continue selling out grand finals within 24 hours if we want to keep encouraging people to come. And if you market it, I suppose it depends on how the AFL wants to market it, but as like a festival of footy, you can draw more fans who may not go for either team or may not just be family or friends. It might actually just, what's the word? Like people who aren't that like kind of bystanders, but that's not what I mean. You know, I can't forget the word, but like unbiased spectators who just want to go watch footy. It facilitates that a lot more. The weather part, obviously, like we thought we were going to play in the rain, which would really dampen the occasion, I suppose. But then again, the men's play MCG, so I suppose that's just kind of footy. You can't, but obviously, like it's hard to argue if there is a stadium with a roof, why wouldn't you use it? But I can also understand the appeal of having a sold out game, and I'm not confident we would sell out Marvel. Maybe eventually, but who knows for now. But what was the last thing again? What was the last one you said? Festival footy.
Or like bigger crowds and the weather dependent. I think you ticked that off.
Yeah. So all of that stuff. Yeah.
And I also feel like if you have a sold out Icon Park, there's a bigger atmosphere than having half a Marvel field out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I also, I was going to say before, we don't play at Marvel anytime during the year, or at least at this stage. I think maybe eventually we might, if in like a double header situation or whatever, I would hope for that. So it would be quite different. Yeah, I mean, there's no conditions if it's got a roof on it. So if we're not used to that, I'm not confident that we would play the best football either. So whereas we played at Icon, all our finals were at Icon, and we played during the season. So I suppose we're a bit more used to it. But I suppose it's kind of like the growing pains effect of it as we go from, you know, the Icons to the Marvels. Yeah. So,
especially in a grand final, like you don't want to put the best game of the year in a place where you haven't played football. But I want to talk about the night grand final because this was different this year. Last year was day. Was it a different atmosphere at night?
I don't know. Maybe I don't remember last year's that well, but I feel like it was louder, definitely louder and more intense, I suppose, in a way. I don't know. I'm all for it. I think it looked great, to be honest. But I also didn't find it that different to the grand final. I think maybe for people watching, it might have been a bit better at night because, like, it was quite hot last year. I don't know. It's and I suppose there's the argument of can young families get to the game if it's at night. Who's to say? I suppose again it's the growing pains effect as things change, but I'm all for it. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the occasion.
Well, it was bloody loud. There's a lot of fans for North, and it's a big club. It seems as if the culture in the men's and the women's too seems strong, even though the men's haven't had the success yet, but that is coming, I'm assuming.
You'd be hoping.
The culture at the club, I want to touch on that, and it seems from the outside looking in, it looks as if it's peaked. Like,
for sure.
Like, can you explain what happens within the club that we might not know at all? Like, it seemed like if we look at Kane, you know, the water boy, how good is he? He's the forefront of the club. Like, it's just so good having people involved. Like, if you talk about that.
Well, I mean, God, it goes through so many things. That's what's so important. Like, to have this much success as a team, not just to win a flag, but to not lose.
Yeah,
a lot of things have to go right. And obviously within us players, like, we all really deeply care for each other, but we also really care about, like, driving our standards. Like, we're not going to accept subpar. We're not going to accept, like, half effort. Like, we all know what we have to do and what we need to do to perform best for the team. So obviously that, but then our coaches put so much of their time and effort into it. We have the most full-time staff in the AFLW. People just, our S&C are so good. They look after us so well in the off season to get us as fit as we could ever be. And then, like, you know, well-being and our medical staff are so caring, and they put in so much extra time because it is like you don't get paid that well in the AFLW. You have to put in the extra time. So, the culture is great. It's great from top down. So it's like to us players, to then our staff, to then, like, even our VFLW program. Like, we're really lucky. We've got a really strong culture. And then obviously Kano. Yeah, he's the best. He is a legend. Yeah, he's
up and about.
For those who don't know, he's Jasmine Garner's brother. And yeah, he's just the best. He water runs for us at training, obviously, and then he's the loudest supporter in the stadium. And yeah, he's just we absolutely love Kano. We love having him around, and he might call me tonight. He always gives me a call every now and then, and yeah. But I think that's just, if you were to maybe wrap up our culture in one way, it's probably like, even to Kane and to our supporters, like, we're incredibly lucky, and it all sort of works together in a nice system to produce the culture you guys see. Yeah,
and it seems like I just can't, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but whenever you see Kane, like, he's got so much energy, and like, you just can't wipe a smile off your face because he's always on the fence.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just seems as if like North, or as a whole, you know, you've got the men's and the women's, but it seems as if you're all one.
Yeah.
Like, the men came down and they watched you guys, and I don't know about the other clubs, but it just seems like as a North Melbourne footy club, you're doing a lot right, which is obviously a brilliant start. Do you have any goals in the future to achieve, or are you kind of taking it once, like, day by day, in terms of on and off the field?
Personally?
Like, yeah, in terms of whether it's leadership or off the field?
I'm with my season this year. I'm pleased, but I'm not satisfied. Like, I still feel like I have a long way to go in terms of what I can achieve within my own capabilities. And obviously years in the system. You know, as you go on, and it's going to be my second or third preseason now. So it's just, you know, getting it all under your belt. Leadership, I guess, maybe. I'm more just, I think my time will come. Like, we're in a very good spot right now in terms of our leaders and our, our senior players. Like, we're very lucky, and I think everything's evolving just as it needs to. And obviously there's going to be a changing of the guard at some point, because we've got some older girls now who are going to reach that point in their career. But when that comes, I'm looking forward to that opportunity when it comes, but I'm also perfectly happy with where we are now. And I think team aspirations, I think we're still ready to, we're not satisfied now with this one. We're ready to keep pushing, and obviously just keep driving our standards that we've really shown this year. Yeah.
I also want to go back to the structure of the AFLW, and you guys obviously start the season a lot later. I think it's August you start. I don't know where your thoughts are on it, but I feel like it would be better to start it earlier in the season. Like, where are your thoughts on it? Because I feel like it would get too hot playing footy. I don't know, but then it might mix with the men's game.
It's a hard one.
It's really hard.
Trying to fit two separate competitions in at the one time, and they're not at the same stage, obviously. So, like, the men's is just always going to outperform the women's, and there's nothing you can. That's just facts, unfortunately. But I do think they're different audiences as well. Like, I feel like the AFL audience is obviously a lot more broad, and has a lot more people. But then I think the AFLW kind of caters to a bit of a niche audience, and so in terms of the season start date, I think our goal is to obviously play everyone once, to have a full complete season, because at this stage we're still not playing everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the hard point. Obviously you can't click your fingers and make that stuff happen. Starting earlier, I can see. I think hopefully in the future we would love to have it, whereas it's like the same men's and women's teams play against each other as the men's teams, but obviously who's to say how the season will go? You know what I mean? So like a blockbuster game between the women's sides might not be the same as the men's sides playing. There's a lot of different, parts to it all, of course. I think the start date now, I think in this season coming, I think they're trying to do some more like double headers, or at least like try and overlap it a little bit more, because like you said, like there's a bit of footy fatigue as well, because you have the long men's season and then you have an extra 10-12 weeks of the women's season. But in saying that, I also think it's important for us to stand on our own 2 feet as well. We can't fully coincide, I think, because I think we're kind of doomed to be overshadowed as well. So I mean, look, it's, I'm glad I don't have to figure it out. I'm glad I just get to show up and play. So it's it's not that simple to solve. But obviously I know there's lots of work being done to determine what the best solution is. Yeah,
it's a tough decision, but I know you were talking about like the Heat in the last grand final, and I just feel like playing in the start of spring, playing a physical sport, it would be fatiguing.
That's true, but it's also we played in 6 rainy games this season.
Yeah,
who's to say?
I guess you can't control the weather, but yeah. So obviously start the season later. So when does your pre-season start?
Started June this year.
Okay. So then it'll start next year in
I think starting in May because
okay.
we're starting a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Next
So
year.
what are you going to do from here until May?
I go to uni full time. So when that starts, I'll go to uni.
Yeah.
Until then, bit of nothing, I reckon.
Yeah. What are you studying?
It's been a very... I study a Bachelor of Science at Melbourne.
Nice.
I think I'm going down the psychology path, but that could probably change. Who knows? But yeah, until then, I think spend some time with family. It's a pretty hectic footy season, and obviously we had the condensed period this year. So that's gonna be a blooper. Yeah, so it's just been very hectic. So yeah, definitely just hang out with family and friends, and then get back into it. Obviously, start training pretty soon as well. So yeah.
How do you manage uni and footy? That must be tricky.
Uni obviously cops a large sacrifice.
Yeah.
I only full time for half the year, and the second half I go to part time.
Yeah.
And then and obviously like you can apply for different things in uni so that you have a bit more social consideration, so that like, because like there's professional performers and other professional sports people and other stuff who go to uni as well, so they obviously need to have, you know, certain guidelines so that like if you can't make the attendance requirements or something, there's a bit of understanding. So it's obviously hectic, but yeah, it's just part of it. I'm not the only one for sure. There's so many girls that go to uni and have their careers alongside football.
Do you think there will be a time in the future where AFLW can be a full-time job?
Yeah, I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal for all of us eventually. Like, we're pretty lucky. We're at a point where it's more professional than it's ever been. So obviously you have to be very grateful for that. And yeah, I think that's where it'll go eventually. But like, it's like the Matildas 10 years ago were probably where we are now. So you know, in 10 years, who knows what we'll be.
Yeah, I just wonder how they get to that point. I don't know. I know.
Yeah, I mean, money will be a big one.
Yeah.
Obviously, and then you know, there's girls who still want to continue working as well, which is, you know, that's their right, and I completely understand. They don't want to abandon their career that they work so hard on. So yeah, I mean, look, again, it's one of those things. He's gonna have to figure it out, but it's already shifted from when I started, which was 2021. The like training times have shifted so much to more to reflect a full-time environment instead of part-time. Yeah, for sure.
Well, if we look at like finals footy compared to, you know, your home and away, is there anything that changes mentally or in preparation for a finals game or a grand final compared to a home and away game, or do you try and keep it fairly similar for you individually and then the team as itself?
I mean, there's obviously little parts of, there's obviously going to be more pressure in a finals game. You get more hyped for it, this, there and that. But I think the goal is to be as much the same as you know, any game. Because obviously even in the home and away season, like we might have a big game against Brisbane, or we might play against like a lower team like the Gold Coast who just didn't have a great year. You still want to make sure you're preparing the same way, because if you are, you know, it's the one, if you don't fully, you know, play a role, you don't fully show up on the day, that could be the one that gets you. Like you just don't want to risk it. And I think that's something that we've really focused on a lot, I suppose. Like in both me individually, I was really focused on being calm and just collected no matter what happened for each game. But then for the team, I think we were really good at just looking towards our next opposition and not reflecting on the past. Like obviously reflecting necessarily on the past games, but not just basking in successes and then focusing on the next thing. And we did the same warm-up, same setup. Apart from the grand final, there's a lot of stuff going on in the grand final. But, you know, same warm-up, same program, same time, same everything, which is obviously a credit to our program. We're really well organised. So your goal is to keep it as much the same as you can. Yeah.
Well, touching base on the reflection, I don't know how much time you want to spend on the grand final last year. Obviously, the Roos, you lost that. And how much reflection and time did you spend in the process of, I guess, overcoming that? If you talk about that experience in the grand final against Brisbane where you lost, did you spend so much reflection on that afterwards? Or did I
think everyone thinks we watched it back. I promise we didn't.
No.
I so promise we didn't. Like, we didn't... it just didn't... I'm not sure because we just didn't. And maybe it would have been different if we had whatever, but I think that was a collective decision from our coaches that it wasn't that necessary because we'd done a lot right to get to that grand final. I think that was the bulk importance, is that we really refined our game to where it does match up against the best. and we'd obviously accomplished a lot of milestones last year. Like we beat Melbourne. I don't know if we'd ever beat Melbourne, but we hadn't for a while. So we beat like a couple of the top 4 sides. So we beat Adelaide, and we hadn't done that in a while. And we beat Melbourne to get to the grand final. So yeah, the main message is that like the bulk of the work was really good, and we'd done the hard stuff. It was just about refining the little things now to have a better result on the final day. And obviously there's bits and pieces you reflect on. You think about, could I have done this better? Could I have done that better? And you probably could have, and we might have had a different result, but ultimately you can't change that. And so you have to use the learnings and move forward. And I think we really did that well.
For sure. And then you fast forward a year and just say you wake up on grand final day. Did you do anything as a collective? Obviously we know what happened the previous year. Was that discussed at all beforehand, or it was just, we've got a grand final to play and that's about it?
Not really. Well, maybe a little bit. I think we all kind of spoke about how much calmer we felt this time, which probably relates back to our path to the grand final. I'd say like last year we were riding a fair bit of momentum to get to the grand final. So like we beat Melbourne we beat Melbourne when we lost them earlier in the year, and we beat Adelaide when we lost them earlier in the year. Whereas this time I think it was probably due to having unfinished business. I think we were expecting to get back to the grand final because we wanted to, go one better so badly. Whereas I think last time we were really surprised we got to the grand final, if that makes sense. So it was more like, and then probably using our learnings from last year, like how we probably were just a bit scrambled and we were probably overthinking the game and overthinking the occasion. So yeah, we're a lot more calm, a lot more composed in the lead up, and I think we were just more excited about it instead of nervous. And I think the number one thing was just the club. We were all just very calm, just went about our business as normal. And I think that, I don't want to say this again, but I think it held us in good stead for the game, for sure.
Do you think, that calmness also falls off the leaders, or is it, or like the coaches, or was it literally all of you were kind of naturally calm? Or did someone go up to you and say to be calm, or were you normally naturally?
No, I think that's sort of
how you were.
I don't know. That's an interesting question, actually, because I don't think no one came up and said be calm. I think it kind of just was what it was, but I think it's kind of reflected on our whole season. I'd say we kind of had that vibe about us no matter what. Like even after we drew that game against Geelong, we were just very calm because we knew what we did wrong. And so we just applied it the next week, and I think that goes for our whole season. Like we looked at what we had to do to win. We won, and then we used our learnings and just went to the next game. It felt pretty calm all season, I'd say. So I think it's just I don't want to say the vibe, but I think it's part of that culture probably that we spent building since last year, and then I think really put into practice since off season, probably earlier this year, that then followed us through pre-season into the granny eventually. And
you're a part of a team that obviously went undefeated. You drew one game against the Cats, as you said, but after every game you won. Was there anything? Obviously, there's a lot to improve on, but what was there to improve on after each game if you're not losing? Or was it just keep doing the same thing? I
think the important part of our season was that Croc's our coach, for those who don't know. The whole undefeated thing we didn't really talk about because I don't think we saw it as it was obviously of note, but I also think it was there was no real pressure on us then because it was it just so happens to be undefeated because we played the football we needed to play, if you know what I mean, instead of we're undefeated, how amazing is that, let's keep this going. It wasn't so much that sort of focus. And obviously obviously you win games and that's a great result, but I think we want to play a North Melbourne type game, and we call it our identity, and to play a perfect game, our perfect game would probably be the grand final if we really looked at it. In taking all the reflections from the year, that would probably be our best game of the year. And that just comes from obviously we get the result against teams, but that doesn't mean we played our best football. And it's just taking those times where we didn't play our best and then how we can then use it better the next week, I suppose. So
what defines your best football? Why was the grand final the best? What did you do right? Obviously, I know you did a lot right, but if you can elaborate on that. What's our biggest strength, I suppose, is how much am I allowed to say?
I'd say it's our team defense. We don't work as you're a one-on-one, so you all work on your own opponent. I think we all work to defend as a team, if that makes sense. So it's not on just one person to do a really great tackle or something. It's on everyone working together. So you push up on your opponent and someone's coming to recover back. And then just our pressure, like that was really important for us to have really high pressure, because Brisbane are a very high pressure team, and I think that got the better of us last year. So I think we knew going in, obviously you have to be very high pressure team, but pressured with method is our thing. We don't want to be just we don't want to just be crazy and just hectic everywhere. It's really organised. I think that probably is our overall thing. Like, we're very organised. We know what our role is, and we know what we're supposed to do for the team. And then if we all do that, it works pretty well together. Yeah.
I want to go back to the club itself and everyone involved, because the selectors, they've done such a good job. They've picked up Libby Birch, who's obviously just won her third flag at a third club. Pens flying everywhere. And there's, from the outside looking in again, it seems as if with clubs especially, it's just the players and it's the coach and the assistant coach, but there's so much more to that. How many people are involved with the club? If you look at whether you've got a forwards coach, or if you look at everyone involved, how many people are we looking at and how important are they? Yeah,
well, gosh, so there's our main coach, Croc, and then we got assistants, and then obviously line coach, forward, mids, backs. We have development coaches. We have our S&Cs, so 3 S&Cs, one who specifically focuses on rehab.
Yeah.
Data analysts who and like stats guys who also help us analyze opposition.
And is that as a collective when you analyse the opposition and that? Or?
Yes. Yeah. So we have an oppo analysis before we play. Yeah. And they've obviously gone away and decided what we need to focus on to win, and they come back and show us pretty much. I really want to drum home that our medical staff know how to look after us so well. We personally, I've had some injuries in the past that have reoccurred, but due to the medical staff and the S&Cs being really onto it, it hasn't happened again, and they handle me, they manage me so that I still maintain my fitness but I don't get injured, and it's all one big cohesive unit that then. So the medicos speak to the coaches, and then the coaches do drills with us that work, and then the analysts say this is going to be important for this game, so the coaches implement the drills, and it really is a well-oiled machine, and a lot goes on that I'm sure I don't know about, but we're definitely the beneficiaries as the players.
Can we talk about the injuries you've had in the past? Firstly, what's the worst one you've had?
I was 15, and I was playing NAB League at the time, and I had this pain in my foot, but I didn't really know what it was, so I kept playing, kept training, kept running, all that, and got to the point where I'd played a game and I got up, I couldn't walk the next morning, I physically couldn't support my weight. Got a scan. Basically, I had a really bad stressy in my navicular bone in my left foot. It wasn't actually a fracture, but it was basically a week away or so, or whatever. And so it was 3 months in a moon boot and 2 months on crutches, no weight bearing, and then got over that. And then 2 years after that, I played the NAB League Grand Final and got home, drove home, and then tried to get out of the car, and I couldn't put the weight on my foot again, and it was the same injury, but this time not as bad. It was 6 weeks in a moon boot or something, and then 2 years again. It's funny, it's happened in twos. It was the last week of pre-season, of our off-season before pre-season started at North, and I'd done a massive pre-season, but I hurt my foot again, the same bone, same foot, same thing. And it's something I'm just a bit biomechanically what's the word? Not subjected to, but it's something that I'm at risk of because of how I run and how I developed. And so, it happened again, and it was 4 weeks in a moon boot. So, yeah.
So that second time, you said you were playing, and then you went home and couldn't walk. Could you not feel that in a game?
That's the funny one. See, you would think, because all the other ones, it was definitely a lead up, but it's the kind of thing I don't know. I'd love to know, because all of my other ones, it's been like every step is sore and I know what it probably is. But this one, it just absolutely came out of nowhere. I don't know if it was adrenaline or something. But yeah, so yeah, just got home, couldn't walk.
That's scary, kind of. Well, can we talk about like all the challenges in the AFLW? I know injury is a big one, but if you could look at the AFLW and playing the game as a whole concept, what's the most tricky or challenging thing associated with it, if you could?
Personally, or as like a whole
Personally.
for the AFLW? Challenging. The most challenging thing for me is having like self-belief to be at the level. Like the average time, I think, of the average list time of an AFL player is like 5 years or something, but you wouldn't hear about that, you know what I mean? Like you hear about the 300 game players and the awesome first year draftees like a Harry Sheasel or a Nick Dacos or a Harley Reid, or if we're talking in the AFLW, you got Geordie Sparkus or Charlie Rowbottom or whatever, but not everyone is destined to start so early. And I think that really played in my head for a couple of years. It was just like, why aren't you this good? Why aren't you good enough this early? Like you should be. What's wrong with you? Like, are you not working hard enough? And then I work really hard and then I blow up my foot because I'm not doing it in the right way. So it's a bit of patience, but a bit of like, you got to have some self-belief that like if you do the right things, it will happen for you. And I think another thing for me that's helped me is like looking outside of myself and look to team success more importantly, and how I can do my job for the team has then flowed on to me playing better football because it's less about yourself and it's more about contributing to that well-oiled machine we were talking about before.
I remember, so you won the grand final and then obviously enjoying afterwards. I saw on your story some people commenting criticism. How, like with criticism, it's obviously not accepted. But, I mean, like, how do you deal with that? Like, I thought it was good for you pointing them out.
Well, see, I don't usually. So that was a one, like, I think that's probably just something a few girls experience, and obviously some non-binary people in the AFLW experience is just that sort of like people will call me a boy to make a joke because I have short hair and tattoos, and most of the time I just ignore it because they are just idiots just trying to get a rise out of you. And it is hard to deal with, and like I know Dakota Davidson, who's the Lions forward, she's talked about it, and it is just idiots. But I think that grand final, I was like, look, I've had a great game. We've won the flag, and I'm still copying this. I was like, I don't think so. Like you want to say it, you can say it to everyone who follows me if you want. And I got so many positive comments just telling them to ignore it. And I was like, I do ignore it most of the time, but also like, I think it shows a bit of strength to kind of not hit back, but kind of just stand up and say, I have short hair and what. Yeah. And like, there's like...
Well, you did nothing wrong. You just put the comment on. Like, people know
exactly.
what they
I didn't
said.
say anything. Exactly. I fully didn't say... And like, you know what you said. If you're embarrassed of your comment, then you probably shouldn't have said it.
I think he would have regretted it afterwards, which hopefully he does.
It's just like... Look, it's just a bit of like... I suppose that's kind of like self-confidence to like be like... You can... Okay, yes, I have short hair and you can make fun of me, but you saying I'm a boy on a comment, you know I'm not. I'm in the AFLW. You choose to say this to get a reaction, and if I react, you can't be upset about that. So, look, it's something that I've had to deal with, obviously, as I've grown up, because I've always appeared this way. And so I think I've learnt how I want to deal with it, and I'm certainly not going to put it on my story every time it happens. But if I'm having a good night and I've had a great game, we've won the flag. Then I'm not sure I'm going to put up with it.
No, exactly. So have you had a lot of those or criticism? I know every player in any sport deals with it. Is it something, I know you just a very casual person, you just brush it off, but like, do you get a lot of people? I mean, we were talking beforehand, you get a lot of messages after the grand final that your phone was blowing up.
Well, I suppose it depends what criticism. If you're talking about that sort of criticism about me being called a boy, I've dealt with that since I was 10. Because again, I had short hair, I played junior girls footy, like people had an issue with it, and because I was fairly decent, people had an issue. But if it's just in terms of me as a player, I think there's been times where it's been it can be overwhelming, especially as a young player coming into the system. You're not used to people having a say about you without knowing much about you. It can be quite overwhelming, but I suppose it's kind of the new era we're in, especially with social media. Like, people can say whatever they want to behind a faceless username.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like, you have to kind of, it is healthy to, I think, have a detox from social media and not look at comments, especially in the AFLW industry. Some people can just say horrible things, and that's their choice. That's their prerogative. If you want to, you can. Don't know why you'd want to, but that's I can't stop you.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's part of anyone. If you're in the limelight and you're doing well enough that people have something to say about you, that's something on its own. Like, people are watching you because you're so good at your sport. And you can critique, and you can have a bad game, and you can miss a kick and all that. But at the end of the day, you just got to come back to what makes you you, and really rely on the people around you. I think, like, you have to talk about it. You can't just go insular, which I've done before for sure. I've just gone really insular, and I felt like the whole world was against me.
Yeah.
But if you got to lean on the people around you because they know you properly. And I mean, it's hard. But I mean, I really feel for the AFL boys who are exposed to so much more because they're on such a bigger stage. I'm not sure how they deal with it, but more, they're very strong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to go back into as a kid, you obviously, when you were playing with the boys, I'm assuming you would have dominated them at the end of the day, did you?
I was a bit soft. I wouldn't say I dominated in the boys.
Because I feel like at the end of the day, all that criticism comes down to jealousy. I mean, they don't, like, if you were bad, they wouldn't really be.
I always find the male comments on the AFLW talking about how, like, an under-15s team could beat them. I was like, wow, you are very jealous. You're a very jealous man, aren't you?
What else would it be? It's got to be jealous.
It's just jealousy, or it's just like maybe threatened in some way, or maybe trying to get a laugh with, like, some people can just try and be funny to the people around them. But whatever it is, I don't know. It's just a very interesting perspective to have on some people doing something that makes them happy. Yeah.
I want to go back to, like, all the players you play with in a premiership team. You're going to have heaps of guns, and you're one of them. And I think everyone in the team is obviously a gun. Like, if you look at Jamangana and Riddell, I should say, and Libby Birch and Emma Carney, she's been there for ages. Like, when you went first to the club, they were all there. Yep. Or apart from Libby, she's But like, they must be instrumental. Am I right in saying instrumental in, the growth of new players and being there? Or, like, when you walked into the club, who was, your biggest supporter, I could say, or person that really got you through the doors? Like, because it must be pretty special playing with them, I guess. I mean,
well, I mean, I think the reason we have developed into being the side we are is because those same players have driven the standards and set a really good example for us young girls to see how hard we have to work in pre-season. What we have to do, to become better, like how we can rely on our coaches and all that. How you stick to your gym routine, like things like that. Like, the standards are really set by those older players, and I think as a young player looking at them go about their business, it's very motivating because you see how good they are and you see how they become so good, and you just want to be like them. So I guess for me, a big thing, we have run club in the off season or pre-season, whatever you want to call it, and I wanted to always show up to that. And someone who's always there is Ash Riddell. She is like, she will show up 110% of the time, and I think we all know that about her now. And, like, if you look at her play a game of football, she is everywhere. It's because she works so hard, and it's, like, really, really inspiring to see. In terms of when I was drafted, I think I probably lent on Emma Carney a lot. I think she really took me under her wing because she's obviously an absolute legend of the game, but I think we're pretty similar in the way we can go about things sometimes. And again, she's obviously, as the captain, she's really responsible for driving standards and being there for so long. I think we all look up to her as younger girls, but I could honestly go on and on and on about girls that you just really really look up to. And it changes sometimes, like, kind of a niche one because I'm not her position or anything, but, like, Sarah Wright, I remember when I got to the club, she wasn't being picked, like she wasn't playing, like she didn't play all the game, she didn't play all the games of the season or anything, and she was like in and out of the team. And I watched her to stick to her guns and really work hard. And now she's like third in the best and fairest and like All Australian nomination and things like that.
Yeah.
Like it's, you could really look at any of them, but we are we're spoiled with the amount of, quality senior players we have in our squad.
And I think everyone like has a story. I mean, you're talking about Emma Carney, and she used to play for the Melbourne Stars. Like, there's sport, like before the AFLW was a thing, everyone has a story. And I just find it really fascinating how, I guess everyone has their own journey to get there, and it's pretty interesting.
That's the unique thing about the AFLW is there was a time where it wasn't a thing. AFLW, all footy girls. So like Emma Carney played cricket and she played hockey, and I think Jamin might have always played footy. I don't know, but she's like a plumber on the side now because she had to get another job. And Jenna's a farmer. Jenna Bruton's a farmer, and like, Kim Rennie played basketball. And like, it's pretty unique. Pretty unique environment.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, I want to look into like 2025 and to see how pumped you are, because you just come off your career best season. I'm assuming you want to take it and you're building on it further. How pumped are you to get into it and try and go back to back?
Yeah, I can't wait. It's actually, I thought I'd have a bit of a hangover, but I'm so ready to go. I think it's really like lit a fire in me personally, but I think we truly do believe we can really compete again next year. There's no reason we can't. And I think we're dealing with something pretty special right now, and I think we can all sort of feel that sort of vibe. We know this. We don't know how long it'll be before this comes around again. So, me personally, I cannot wait to get started. I know that I had a good season, but I know I've still got a lot to. I feel like I have a lot still to, a lot of potential to unlock, I suppose. And I think that way with the team as well. I think we can go to more levels. Yeah.
Have you? I mean, excluding the AFLW, have you won a premiership locally or at all? Never.
It's my first footy premiership.
Really? Cricket?
Went back to back.
Yeah.
in the juniors.
Cricket, but first in footy. How was that feeling? Like, because I haven't won one in footy. I've won two in cricket, like you. And we've been so close. Like, we've made the prelim, and it was a big season, and obviously it's devastating. And then for you to lose the grand final, that must have been so hard. But then to win it, what are the feelings? It's
quite difficult to put into words, I suppose, because I think because we were so committed to playing our brand and committed to, I don't want to say committed to our cause, but kind of in that way. Like, I don't think a lot of us really relished in realizing that we'd won, because obviously there was a bit of a buffer, so we kind of knew for a while. I think it was just like disbelief, because like our whole goal for the whole off season and pre-season was to win the flag, and to realize we were right on the cusp of it, like 3 minutes to go in the last quarter, and to think we're right there. It's pretty remarkable. I remember I was just trying to look around and soak it all in, because it was just like, couldn't quite believe, and looking around me and everyone's hugging, and all the staff that have been there like for so many years trying to get, like, our goal for years has been to be the first AFLW Premiership winning side for North. Like, that's been said out loud. So to be there, look, I don't think I really have the words. I think when the siren went, I just ran. Like, I just put all my energy into running. And I think that's
the camera actually went on you. I was watching it. I was in South Australia. And I was watching it because I was like, obviously I'll go for North, so I was watching it. And then at the end, with 3 minutes to go, whatever the sign went, and I saw you running onto the field, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Like, you just, like, it was just like so much adrenaline, and I was on the bench, right? So I'm not playing, exactly. And so there's so much adrenaline. I just ran, and then it's hugging everyone, and then I think we were just looking around in utter disbelief. Like, the stadium's so loud, and that, like, obviously we watched all of this happen to us, but we were on the other side of it, and we were just like filthy. Like, we didn't want to be on the ground. We didn't want to, like, obviously you got to be good sport, but at the end of it, you just want to go in the rooms and just, because you just don't want to be seen. Like, it's, it's really challenging, obviously. So to be on the other side of that this year just made it all the more special. And just looking around, we're all just kind of like, what the hell? We just did that. Like, and then to do the lap of honor was just, so special. And I kind of wish I paid more attention. Like, I feel like I didn't grasp it enough. I feel like I didn't truly lock it in my memory, because it was just such an incredible experience. But for sure. I would love to put it into words, but it's just pretty indescribable.
Yeah. Did you feel a sense of pressure? I know you're talking about your calmness and everything, but like you've gone undefeated, and you were saying before the end of the year or before the start of the season, your goal was to obviously win the Premiership like every other team. But did you feel like there was that sense of pressure and expectation on you, or was it literally just
maybe a bit? But again, like we didn't talk about the undefeated thing ever. So I don't think that was ever on our minds. And I think in terms, we spoke a bit about being the hunted, I suppose, because last year we'd come through as maybe hunting these bigger teams, and I think this year we kind of, obviously as you go through and you're not losing, I think we kind of spoke about, look, we're being hunted now and we have to respond, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of pressure, but also not really. I think obviously Lions were a quality squad, and I don't think we discounted them for a second. That like I think we sort of just knew, like when it came time to play football, I think all the pressure would just be released and we just do our job, I suppose. So yeah, not overly, no, I'd say. Yeah. But maybe that's hindsight, who knows.
Who did you support growing up as a kid?
Hawthorn.
Hawthorn, yeah, right.
Mad Hawthorn.
Yeah. Did you, I mean, obviously you'd select, like when North picked you up, you'd be more than over the moon, but yeah. Anyway, I was just wondering.
Well, Hawthorn didn't exist when I was drafted.
When did they?
AFLW. They came in 2 years later.
Because there was a lady who was playing for North, and then she went to Hawthorn. I forgot her name.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
Aileen Gilroy or Caitlin Ashmore.
Yeah, Caitlin Ashmore.
Yeah, and Gilly went as well, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to ask you, pretty much. I mean, I've got, like your role as a midfielder, and you're a wing, like you spend time on the wing. Do you, like, you're developing your game? Do you always see yourself on the wing until you retire, or?
Probably
goals,
probably not, but like I'm not opposed to it either.
Yeah.
I think it's where I fit into the team as of right now. Like I was drafted as an inside mid, and then going to North Melbourne, like. All right, inside mid sorted. Not going to go in there. But I played a bit of half back this year when Carnes was injured.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that's in the future, but I honestly don't mind. I've really grown to like the wing a lot. And I feel like I really understand that role well. So, but honestly, I'm not opposed to anything. I'm happy to learn.
Yeah. And then you go down to Tassie, obviously North Melbourne Tassie Kangaroos. How many games do you play down there, roughly? Two.
One in Hobart and one in Launceston.
Yeah. Oh, so you're both. Do you like it down there? Good atmosphere at all? Or you prefer playing at Arden Street?
Well, Arden Street's spiritual home, but love playing in Tassie. I mean, especially in Hobart, we got to play it. Sometimes we play at Blundstone, but I think it's kind of like Blundstone, and then we play, I've forgotten the name of the Hobart, North Hobart Oval. It's kind of like the whole, like, maybe kind of like Marvel and Icon kind of thing. Like, I don't think we filled Blundstone very much, which is just how it is. Yeah. And then playing at North Hobart, I think it was probably a bit of a better atmosphere. But obviously love playing in Tassie, love seeing our fans down there, and we're very, very lucky to have fans in a couple of states. Yeah, and then if you look like in the middle of the season or when you're in the season, what does 7 days of the week look like in terms of training? In the middle of the season? Yeah. So like how many days of the week do you train? So in pre-season, it's a night, like a night session, and then full day. So it'd be like, what was it? I think it would be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Yeah. Yeah. And then like a Monday night, I think, or something. Yeah. And then in season, we swapped it just because we had a lot of Sunday fixtures. But it would be pretty much the same, except the Saturday is like is a game. Yeah. And then on the Sunday or the day after the game, you get a day off. Is that how it works? Yeah, typically if we can, but I think we had a bit of trouble with that with the condensed period a couple of times. But yeah, usually it'll be at least 1 day off and then into the training. Yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Well, I don't think I have anything else to say apart from that, or anything else to ask. Thank you. Do you want to say anything before we wrap it up at all? In terms of I'm all good. If you're all good, I'm good. I'm all good. Well, thank you so much, Tess, for jumping on. It actually means a lot. You've driven a fair way to get down here, but I appreciate it. And I wish you the best of luck for next season, and hopefully you go back to back. So thank you. Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.